Chelsea Sherrod here with Zach Cox at Gillette Stadium. And Zach, talk about a bombshell. I mean, this morning, the Patriots announced that they plan to release cornerback Stephon Gilmore. And then hours later, the Carolina Panthers announced that they've acquired Gilmore in a trade. What were your initial thoughts on this release? And what are the Patriots actually getting in return for the former Defensive Player of the Year?
What are they getting? Basically nothing. They're getting a 2023 sixth-round draft pick in return, which is, I mean, I guess it's better to get something than nothing after they had already announced that they plan to release Gilmore. But yeah, this is a major surprise to me. I always expected Gilmore to eventually be back in this defense, even if the Patriots weren't able to figure out anything with that contract. Obviously, it's been a point of contention between them and Gilmore for a while now, but it just seemed like the way they assembled this defense, they went out and got a bunch of new defensive tackles, they got a bunch of new linebackers. It really was, cornerback seemed like a group that was sort of assembled just to hold down the fort until Gilmore got back. And now you're not getting Gilmore back, and it's going to be J.C. Jackson, Jalen Mills, Jonathan Jones, Joejuan Williams, those guys moving forward. They've played well so far, but that's a dangerously shallow group. If you have any injuries there, you're looking at probably Joejuan Williams into the starting lineup. He wasn't even active this last game. He was a healthy scratch. So this is a dangerous move for the Patriots, I think.
Speaking of this defensive core, they just took on the Bucks, which is the top receiving cores in the league. Now they're preparing for the Houston Texans. Bill Belichick did say it's one of the better receiving cores than he's seen. We know Bill Belichick, but how do they prepare this week for the Texans?
I mean, this should be a much easier matchup for the Patriots defense, even though they do have some talent in that receiving core. Brandon Cooks is having a good year, but they've got Davis Mills at quarterback, rookie second-round draft pick, really struggled last week in the Texans' blowout loss to the Buffalo Bills. I think he's a player that definitely has a long way to go and is in prime territory for a seeing ghosts type game against this Patriots defense. So this should be a bounce-back game for the Patriots, who, as I mentioned before, have played reasonably well on defense this season.
Okay, well, now we talked about the defense. Let's talk about some offense. Isaiah Wynn, Mike Onwenu, both on the COVID list, both missing from practice, amongst a group of linemen missing from practice. Do you think there's an opportunity for them to come back this week and potentially play on Sunday?
Yeah, that's unclear with the NFL's COVID restrictions. We don't know exactly when those guys will get back on the field, and this is a big problem for the Patriots because their offensive line already has been a major issue this season. It has not played well through 4 games. It hasn't had Trent Brown for almost the entire season. And as you mentioned today, a group of players out of practice. The Patriots are missing 4 of their starting 5 offensive linemen at practice today. David Andrews, the center, was the only one who was out there. Not exactly clear why Trent Brown and Shaq Mason weren't there. We don't know if that's related to the COVID situation or if that's injury related or some other reason, but things were already in pretty rough shape for this Patriots offensive line. If they're going into this game, even against a pretty weak Texans team, without 4 starters, that's a big problem.
Yeah, definitely some adversity to work through. This week, obviously, last week, the storyline was Tom Brady returning to Gillette, right? Now another former Patriot is making his return to New England, at least reportedly, and that's Jamie Collins. What can you say about his return?
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly surprising return for a lot of people. I think once the Detroit Lions released Collins last week, it seemed almost inevitable that he would end up back in New England. That is official now, according to his agent. He has officially signed with New England, so we'll see if he's in the lineup this weekend or if that's not until next week. He's getting old. He's going to be 32 later this month. He wasn't particularly productive for the Lions, so who knows what kind of player the Patriots are going to actually be getting with him. But they have been able to get the best out of Collins in both of his previous stints. This will now be his 3rd stint. Going to add some speed to that linebacking core, which I think has slightly underperformed so far this season outside of Matt Judon. So definitely, I think, a positive addition, but I wouldn't be expecting early 2019 Jamie Collins necessarily here.
Okay, and the Patriots looking for their 2nd win of the season. Should be a winnable game for them against the Texans on Sunday. Stay locked in with NESN.com for all your updates heading into this Week 5 matchup.